Good evening, it's Patriot Smoothie at the end of a very long day 19 of the trial of Tamara, Lich and Chris Barber here in Ottawa. This trial just doesn't seem to ever end with no clear end in sight still. The Crown hasn't even finished its case. The defense hasn't even begun their case. The trial dates are all up in the air. But what I can tell you is today we heard from OPS Police Liaison Team Officer Isabelle Cyr. That's Isabelle with an E at the end, not Isabella. She originally testified, I believe, on September 6th, way back more than a month ago. The Crown did its examination in chief, but the defense could not do the cross-examination because what they believed at the time to be WhatsApp chats that were missing were actually signal chats, and that went down a whole big, deep web of disclosure issues with attachments in their emails and other things that now they have. So there was cross-examination by Magus and Greenspan today. We talked about a lot of that from the lunch breaks. I'm going to cover a lunch to now. Again, a lot of dry details, so many names, so many things that are making my head explode. But let's just get to it. So the first thing that stood out after the break was there was discussion about how the police liaison teams were told that they wanted to move trucks. The police liaison teams, they wanted to, quote, reduce the footprint here in Ottawa, get trucks out of residential areas onto the staging areas, Wellington, SJAM, wherever it was. Never ended up using the ATN Parkway, to my knowledge. The George ATN Parkway was one of the planned ones. They never ended up using it. Don't know why, I forget. Maybe it came out at POEX or something. But so they wanted to remove those people from residential areas and put them on staging areas. But as of January 31st, they were told, nope, not happening, can't move it. You might recall that there was a famous quote from former Ottawa Police Chief Peter Slowly, where he said not 1 inch in reference to moving the vehicles. We heard that come out of POEC. So that wasn't happening. We don't actually know who made that decision. Russell Lucas just testified. Inspector Russell Lucas, who was the incident commander during the protest here in Ottawa, February and January 2022, testifying that they just weren't allowed. It came from above him. They weren't allowed, and he put that down to everyone else. Isabelle Cyr doesn't remember ever being told by Inspector Lucas why they couldn't move trucks, just that they couldn't. And there were several occasions where she directly asked, or people, the police liaison team directly asked to move trucks, and it was denied. For example, there was an occasion at the infamous corner of Rideau and Sussex where police liaison team officers, can't recall if it was Cyr herself or another police liaison team officer, asked because some of those trucks, there was 4 trucks, bobtails as they're calling them, white, silver, red, and I believe a green one that wanted to move off that intersection. They were denied, and they wanted to go to Wellington. They were told that they couldn't. This was also when we heard testimony from Cyr that there was an altercation. The altercations at that intersection from which what they were calling the French Connection, which was not formally associated with the Freedom Convoy. It was for FADA's individuals. They also, I believe, Greenspan naming a Norm Jr., someone named Norm Jr., I didn't catch the last name, as the leader of Farfadas. Now, however, I believe the leader of Farfadas, if I heard that correctly, to be Steve Charland, but nonetheless, that's what we heard, that they were combative, that they did not have an emergency lane at Rideau and Sussex, and that they only would move for vehicles. We also heard testimony from Isabelle Cyr, Officer Cyr, that they said that they weren't going to move, and that they told those 4 bobtail trucks that wanted to move they better not move, is the testimony we heard from PLT. So this is like second, third-hand information, whatever. I don't know if it was directly witnessed, but it was written in their notes, in their signal chat, wherever. There's so many different places this information is coming to, because you remember back in early September when they were testifying about the PLT logs, which is a compilation made by, I believe, an analyst of both notes, signal chats, and all this other documents, which led us to this disclosure trail that made the defense want the entirety of all the source documents, not just this composition PLT log. So we heard about Rideau Sussex, we heard about that. We also heard Officer Cyr testify about a swarming. She said that, I think it was on February 17th, she was carrying out information. She was informing protesters of the impending warning that they have to leave or be arrested or towed. And she was told at that time she was swarmed and did not feel safe. She did not feel safe. So she was swarmed on Wellington on the 17th, I believe she testified, and she did not feel safe as she was handing out those warning letters to disperse or be arrested. Then there was another messaging, I believe, early morning, February 18th, where she was telling people, her and other PLTs were telling people to move or you're getting arrested immediately. In the preceding time to the enforcement action that happened infamously on those days here in Ottawa. We also heard about a few things that she saw. She reported and took a picture of in her signal chat a bulletproof gray tactical vest in one of the trucks on Wellington, I believe she said, and that she reported that in the signal chat, and that another officer, there was about, I don't know, 10 to 15 officers who were named in there, who wanted to move, who were talking about different things, different source material being brought up. But this particular officer read the VIN of that truck with the alleged bulletproof vest in the truck, and then that issue was brought to other officers. That was something that Isabel Sear testified she saw, she took a picture of, she shared it in the signal chat. Another officer read the information of that truck to other officers to try to get them to come and work on it, and that's something that was something that stood out in the testimony for sure. We also heard testimony from her concerning Sergeant, I believe, Fong Lee, who was the PLT sergeant at the time, one of the sergeants in the unit, who felt that they were restricted, felt the PLTs were restricted from negotiating, that they couldn't really do their job, in essence of what he was saying. They couldn't negotiate moving these trucks. Even if the truckers wanted to move, they were told they couldn't after the 31st and whatever. We did also hear about a 1040, which is police code for stolen vehicle. There was a stolen car at some point during that. Didn't hear if that was a resident or a protester or whoever. Greenspun misunderstood that to be 40 trucks that wanted to move, but in fact there was also something in that same line of discussion, I believe from the same day, middle February, before the 17th, of 40 trucks being moved after the same day, where they were talking about a 1040 in the signal chat, a stolen car. I'm not sure if there was a relevance to that or what the connection is. Also discussion testimony about how Daniel Bulford was continuously communicating with police liaison teams, getting them information about whatever was happening, including information about things that he knew about the gun stolen in Peterborough, I believe on February 12th, 2022. So constantly communicating. That came up in Magus's Cross, constantly communicating in a way that a police officer would communicate. That Isabel Sear testified that was the case, that's how he was communicating, and that he did so through the duration of the protest. And I take that to mean some sort of form of goodwill, of sharing information concerning threats to public safety or threats to public order and significant issues that were occurring on the ground. But there was an effort to open that line of communication and keep it open from them. And again, Sergeant Lee testifying, not testifying, but his notes saying that he felt like frustrated that he couldn't do his job, more or less the essence of the things that he was communicating in those PLT chats. Interesting also, Isabel Sear testifying that she felt extremely overwhelmed, that she said, quote, she was doing the job of 20 people as the primary information point, I believe she said, for the PLT teams. She was the primary information point, processing that, getting it out to them, and that she felt very overwhelmed, wishes she had a scribe, wishes she has an assistant. So that's important to note, that she felt extremely overwhelmed at that time doing the job of what she called 20 people, a 20-person job that she was doing herself. So that's something interesting to note. We talked about Rito Sussex. We talked about the bulletproof vest that was spotted. We talked about the swarming incident where she said she didn't feel safe towards the end of the protest, February 17th. And she was asked if she could identify any of those people. She couldn't. Quick note, there was no Crown re-examination for Isabel Sear today. So as soon as Magus and Greenspun finished first, then Magus took about 20 minutes. Greenspun took the entire day. After that was done, we were done with the witness, and we had an interesting schedule discussion, which I'll go over with you in just a moment. Just trying to think if there was anything else important that I'm missing. Just quickly, if you want more of the minute details, the minutia of everything going on, go onto my Twitter account, Patriot Smoothie, Right Blend, and you can find the play-by-play there. Again, a huge amount of dates mentioned today, tons of police names, a lot of characters that we're not going to hear about again, so not just something that I don't really need to share. But if you're interested in the details and the more chronological order of how the day progressed, again, as always, my X threads are the place to be for my court reporting. This is just a meta overview of the situation. I hope you appreciate it, because I'm so tired right now. I wish I could just stop this and go home. I can't wait to finish this. I can't wait for the week to be over. I feel like there is something important I'm missing in concerning Isabel Sear's testimony. We talked about, again, the vest that she saw, the swarming, the Farfada situation with the so-called Norm Jr. at the intersection of Rito Sussex. We talked about how when she did take drives and walks on the 31st, I believe, and the 1st of February, and on those dates, the roads, there was an emergency lane opened on all roads, I believe, except for Kent. So Wellington, Elgin, Metcalfe, wherever else she went, it was open everywhere except Kent, which was blocked from the 417, according to her, to Wellington. That would have been, I believe, the Sunday and the Monday, the 31st and the 1st. Go back through my notes, you'll find that specific information. So, and she testified she never again went out and did a count like that, so we don't have any further from her. We also had we heard through her that Sergeant Lee believed that the truckers were trying to fulfill their promise to the mayor. I believe the February 14th promise to the mayor, or whenever that day, February 3rd. So many dates I lost track, but he felt they were trying to fulfill that, but again, they couldn't because they were blocked by someone above the chain of command. And interesting, when Cyr was asked a lot of questions, she didn't recall a lot of information, and for some questions she answered that was above her pay grade for the questions being asked. So I mean, we could call Inspector Russell Lucas back if there's any remaining outstanding questions, I assume. But again, that's where we're at. Sergeant Lee of the PLT believed that the protesters were trying to meet their obligations with the agreement, the good faith agreement with the mayor and the city of Ottawa. And Officer Cyr had no information that she could offer that would disagree with that. She had no reason to disagree with that position. She wasn't there for a lot of these things. There was a meeting that happened that she said she stepped in and out of that she didn't quite process correctly. But that's where we're at today. I'm just going to end it there, guys. Thanks for watching on Patriot Smoothie.